Hi, so this is for discussion number 5. So the top 3 most valuable insights that I learned from Rachel's stories this week are: 1, we all strengthen the life around us in ways that are uniquely our own. And I think that was really shown in Rachel's story of the surgeon who folded paper cranes for his patients, meditating on them and praying for them to get better, and also giving that crane and what it symbolized to his patients to encourage them. The second insight that I thought was most valuable was from the story of Rachel spending Hanukkah with her grandfather, and he mentioned that God's menorah is made of people, not candles. And I think that going into healthcare, some of the patients that we're going to be working with are really in a dark time of their lives, and that us as the candles in God's menorah, that we can be a source of light during this dark time in their life. And the third is relating to refuge, in the story about the clams in the ocean that Rachel told. And I just thought this story just had a lot of layers and meaning, and the clams want to take refuge from life in their shell because it's safe and they're protected from the dangers of life in the ocean. But they need to open their shells to breathe, and by doing that they become vulnerable. And since they're vulnerable, sometimes a grain of sand can get in between their shells and cause an irritation. And instead of the clam becoming hard and leathery so that it might be less likely to be injured or hurt, it doesn't do that, but it makes the grain of sand a part of its life, and then it just keeps on breathing and keeps on opening its shelves and doesn't shut itself off. And I think that's something that, especially as future healthcare workers, that we need to remember, that it might be easier to distance ourselves from our patients, especially when bad things are happening to our patients or could happen to our patients. And it might be easier to distance ourselves from them and not be wanting to feel anything. But if we don't become all hard and leathery, then we can really earn a lot more wisdom. So the questions that I decided to focus on was the first question, applying the wisdom in Riemann's stories while assessing the initial implementation of the spiritual care plan so far by the occupational therapist Marie. And I think, especially showing in scenes 2 and 3, that Marie was doing a really good job of implementing spiritual care with Calvin after talking with the chaplain. And I think she was trying to strengthen Calvin in a way that is unique to her, and not just following a certain protocol. And I think she really showed that she wanted to be a source of light in Calvin's life. And I think that she did a good job of showing that she really cared for Calvin, and she hasn't become hardened in her time at work. Even though seeing patients like Calvin who are facing terminal diseases, it would be easy for her to try to distance herself and not care as much, so when he does pass away, that she wouldn't be affected by it. On to question 3, the insights from the reading that might help you as you think about your interactions with Calvin, and what I think would empower me to interact in a therapeutic way with Calvin and his family if I were a member of the team that was treating him. I really thought of the story that Rachel told about David, who had been diagnosed with diabetes. And at the end of the story, she mentioned that disease is at various times brutal, lonely, constricting, and terrifying. But the life in us may be stronger than all that and free us even from that which we must endure. And from that, I was really getting that it would be really important to be present with Calvin, because he probably is feeling really lonely, especially since his parents are estranged. And just letting him know that while he's facing this illness, he's not alone. And I'm thinking about the lesson from this story. It would really encourage, or it really would empower me to try to encourage him so that he can find his inner strength during this time, and not to let this dagger that life threw at him, not to let it destroy him, but that his life is so much more than just the diagnosis that he received. All right, thank you.